I'm Louise Toppin. I'm a singer. I'm a professor of voice at the University of Michigan, and I'm a researcher and scholar in the music of African American music. William Dawson was a composer that wrote his symphony, the Negro Folk Symphony, in 1931. He was a part of a collective of African Americans who were part of the Harlem Renaissance. And as such, they were writing works that spoke to education and to intellectualizing the African American community in the arts. He, William Grant Still, and Florence Price also had the distinction of being the first to break into the symphonic world. And so it was very important to them to reclaim spirituals that had been long neglected after the period of enslavement. They wanted to take the music that was of their culture and their folk into the European classical model and perform in symphonies. He chose the title Negro Folk Symphony because that was the term that was used at that time to describe African Americans. In the Harlem Renaissance, the New Negro movement was about reclaiming the word Negro as a part of the identity of African Americans who had previously been called colored. He is giving a label to spirituals. It's America's true folk music, and he's naming it. He's not trying to find a programmatic name or some other title for it. He's coming right out and saying, this is not just folk songs, but this is folk songs created by Black people who were called Negro at the time. It's a term of dignity and pride. There were students of Dvorak's who were white who actually began to experiment with writing spirituals because Dvorak said this should be America's true folk music. And so there were other people writing spirituals. And William Dawson very much was making it clear who was the creator of this music and why it was created and for what community it was created, even though it was going to go into a concert hall. You're thinking about people from 1865 who were recently freed, who created this music, American music. By the time you're at 1931, which is only 70 years later, it makes it to the Symphonic Hall. And so that's what's so important about the music. It represents the music of the time, but it also represents the history of the past. And it blends the two together, and it speaks to who African Americans were up to that point.